Welcome back to another episode of the 100% Wild Podcast. I'm Mark Kenyon with Wired to Hunt, and surrounding me is a group of really great guys. It's going to be a fun podcast. Who do we got here, Matt?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say you didn't say great hunters. You just said great guys. Probably accurate.
I don't want to go too far.
Okay, so we have a fun podcast today. We have Coon Dog joining us again, longtime Drury Outdoors team member.
Always fun.
And we have a special guest in studio today, Ryan Kirby from Ryan Kirby Art.
What's up, fellas?
Yeah, I'd highly recommend checking out this guy's Instagram page, his website. Like, the way I look at it, it's art, it's wildlife art, but like for a younger generation, it's like the new wave of doing it, right?
Yeah, young-ish.
Yeah.
I just hit 35, so I'm like in a new bracket when I fill out surveys and stuff, like 35 to 40.
Yeah.
You feel a little
But
chipper.
yeah, definitely for a younger crowd.
Your approach, man, I just love the approach to it. That's what draws me in.
When me and Matt were talking about, obviously your art is incredible. Incredible talent. Like, it appeals, obviously, to anyone who loves the outdoors and wildlife. But what I think separates you from many of the other people that are out there that we don't know about is the fact that you've done a wonderful job of connecting with people through social media and through your digital presence and your brand. I mean, you developed a brand. It's not just, my name is Ryan, I paint. Like, you're a thing. You're not just a person. And that is pretty powerful. And I think that's why you're doing so well, and not to mention the obvious talent.
You're using the tools that you have at your disposal to get your message out there, and which is like that's your medium, right? You're an artist, so you're getting your message out there on canvas or whatever, and sketches. But this way, you're using technology to amplify it to the masses.
Like, I got to believe there's a lot of guys or girls out there who can paint wonderful wildlife settings. I can't name a single one of them except for Ryan Kirby.
Yeah.
I like that.
Says
I know one. I know one, but it's because he's from my hometown, Al Agnew. Have you ever heard of Al Agnew?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's from our hometown, our home area. And Jared Lurk's wife, Kristen, her aunt is the wife of Al Agnew. So, like, interestingly enough, it's kind of, and he does phenomenal work.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of his stuff on Bass Pro covers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, real quick, take us through a little bit of the highlights, of career highlights for you, like publications or whatnot that you've done.
We'll go back a little bit further. I grew up on a farm just north here, about 2.5 hours. Real small farm town. Went to school at Bradley University in Peoria, and
Curry.
Yeah,
right.
No. He's Davidson.
Oh, Davidson.
Jim Tony go
right.
there?
That's embarrassing.
Bradley, or did he go to Davidson?
I don't know.
Okay, continue.
Sorry.
They're an engineering school mainly, and I was going to study engineering, but I always knew I wanted to paint full time. So I started studying graphic design and multimedia, which at that time was the web. It was just starting to come out. And when I graduated, there was an ad in the back of Turkey Call magazine for a graphic designer at the NWTF in Edgefield, South Carolina. So I interviewed, sent my portfolio down, got the job there, and spent several years down there. And I really just kind of incubated. I painted some nights and weekends, and just decided to try to get better. I was doing it. I had a full-time job and then doing it part-time, and eventually went out on my own about 5 years ago, and I've been a full-time artist ever since then. So
that's awesome.
I love the branding of your company.
Yeah, and that's part of the story I want to tell there is that, artists have been telling the story of the hunt since the dawn of time. So prehistoric cave art. They weren't drawing flowers or anything like that. They were drawing the hunt, and I can't help but think that they weren't just doing it to one day tell archaeologists hundreds and thousands of years later what they were doing. They loved it. They loved the hunt. They were storytellers in their own right.
That's how they survived.
Yeah, and that's how they survived. That's how they made their living. And artists have been telling a story of the hunt and the pursuit of game forever. So that's where my logo comes from. The brand story, and really, I don't paint anything on homemade pigments on caves anymore, but I've got modern tools, but I'm still doing the same thing that we've always done, and I think that's why wildlife art has been successful over the years. You've had so many things come and go in modern art and this and that, but wildlife art's been around for a long time, and the market has stayed strong for it for a long time because our primary audience is hunters, and we don't really go away,
Right. Yeah.
And so it stayed strong, and I've managed to become fairly successful in what I've done, and worked hard at it, and tried to really improve I like to dedicate to my craft more than anything. And so I take pride in more that I've been able to improve than anything else over the past few years.
Career highlight.
Career highlight. Well, one of the biggest ones so far was the covers on Outdoor Life. And that really happened kind of a random chance meeting. I'd been illustrating for Outdoor Life and Field and Stream a little bit, but in this day and age, you can work with somebody for 2-3 years and never meet them in person, And so I'd been working with their editors for a while, but I'd never met a lot of them. So at a cocktail hour at SHOT Show 3 years ago, I went with some buddies of mine and met Andrew McKean, the editor, and we really just started talking about deer hunting. Nothing real specific. And he knew I was an artist and wanted to see some of my work. And I had a little iPad there and started flipping through. And he says, we haven't had art on the cover for over 20 years. And he said, we've been trying to bring this back. Do you want to be our guy?
Wow.
And I'm like, absolutely.
Heck yeah.
That's a heck of an opportunity.
Yeah, we swapped some emails and stayed in touch. And later that year, we went ahead and did it. And so I was able to paint the first cover of Outdoor Life that they've had featured fine art in over 20 years. And when you think about the caliber of artists that have done that in the past, just to be on that list is an honor. It's just some really incredible people have done it in the past. And the project went over really well. We've done 3 in a row. Just finish up the 4th, which should be out any day now. We're gonna do one every year. So
that's very.
It's
cool.
a pretty cool deal.
Can you tell us what the cover is, or is that secret?
No, it should be out by now, any day now. But it's it's a lab after a flushing pheasant. So it's in August, like Dog Days of Summer.
This is definitely different than what you've done in the past.
Lot different. And so one of the fun challenges, you got to find reference photos, right? And I really need the light right, and I try to take as many of my own as I can, or if not, I purchase them off a wildlife art or a photographer. But a buddy of mine had a yellow lab, and so we spent probably an hour and a half just tossing a dummy up in the air, taking pictures of the thing, and then I'll Photoshop the pheasant in later, and then I'll paint from that. So you sort of artificially recreate a scene. And on canvas, it all comes together, but there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to it earlier.
So I'm really interested in this process to understand like how you do this. And I don't know if you want to talk about some specific examples yet, or if you just want to hear the general process. What do you think of that?
The process. So I was a guy came to me, Tom Gallagher, and this is kind of how it all connects back to Drury Outdoors and what we're doing and why Ryan's here today. A guy by the name of Tom Gallagher, who is one of the buyers at Cabela's, and he's been a longtime friend of Mark and Terry's, and anybody in the industry, like a lot of the old timers in the industry, they know who Tom Gallagher is and that name, and he's the nicest guy. Well, he came to me at SHOT Show. He's had several hunts at Mark's farm where he maybe he missed a deer or two, or he, maybe hit one they didn't find, or maybe. Well, he killed a nice deer, and he wanted to thank Mark. And Tom's the nicest guy. And he said he came to me. We ran into him at the SHOT Show. Everything's connected. The Venetian's connected to what's the name?
Bellagio, right?
Well, no, the Venetian is connected to the
Palazzo,
which is also all connected to where they have the actual SHOT Show, so the exhibits and all that stuff. So anyways, there's a kind of like a restaurant row, and we were just getting getting ready to go into, or getting ready to leave a dinner meeting with the Outdoor Channel. And Tom Gallagher came up to us, and we're all standing there. But the way it works, you're standing out here, and like more and more people see you out there, especially when Mark and Terry are with us. People come up and and talk, people that we know and through the industry and all that stuff. And so Tom and I kind of got off to the side, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do something really nice for Mark. What do you think?" And at ATA, just a week or two before that, I had hung out with Ryan, and I'd known you and Michael Turbofield for a couple years maybe. And, I knew, hey, these guys, I've been wanting to work with these guys. Maybe this is the perfect thing to kind of encapsulate it, right? Yeah. So we talked about doing some sort of original art for Mark that we are going to surprise him with, and he doesn't have any idea. Tom Gallagher's flying in to St. Louis here in a couple hours, and Ryan had some other meetings and was working on his lease this weekend over in Illinois, so we kind of worked it out to where everybody was going to be here. And tonight the plan is we're going to present this via Facebook Live, but have Tom and Ryan come in with this painting that Ryan has done of Danger, Mark's biggest deer to date. And so we actually have a DoD TV episode that we've edited about the whole process of painting Danger. Michael and Ryan have filmed the whole process, so we get to see it come to life.
It's gonna be very cool.
So from kind of the reason why we're all together, that's just the backstory, and I'll let Ryan take over as to what the actual process of a painting is.
Yeah, I'm very interested to hear how this all happened for Danger, or maybe any painting, how you do them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I suggested a life-size portrait of Matt as the gift.
That'd be
Maybe reclining on a couch, but
the head would be so big, though.
Tom just didn't want to go for that, so
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we'll do a 200-plus inch deer if Matt won't work out. But anyway, no, that's exactly right. From my perspective, I've admired the Drurys since I was a teenager, and just like all you guys, I've eaten up every TV, video, everything that's been out there. So I get a little starstruck seeing all you guys out anyway, just because, it's like, wow, I've seen those guys for decades, And so it was we've been trying to work together and just kind of been a fan of each other's work. So this was a cool opportunity. This was kind of the perfect opportunity, like you said. But the piece really starts with the story, and when we first started with this, Matt sent me a ton of stuff. I actually got to see the original of the episode before it went live anywhere, which is going to air tonight, and I really wanted to kick it out on social media to get some followers, but Matt wouldn't let me do that again. So
Coon Dog knows how that goes.
It's happened before?
Well, yeah. We won't get it. Not Coon Dog, but
Oh boy.
Others.
Sorry.
Continue.
But and before we go any further, I just want to say how remarkable it is what you guys have done. Is you guys killed 2 booners on one episode.
Yeah.
And most people would stretch that out to like 4 episodes, but like Danger gets 10 minutes of the show. You know
It's
what I'm
not
saying?
fair,
And I mean,
frankly.
it's like it's
It is
kind of
Danger.
and even Taylor's deer gets overshadowed by
Yeah.
Danger, and it's like these are
Crazy.
giant deer.
Yeah.
So
Coon Dog kills a 205 in
huge
Dream
deal.
Season tonight too. And
I
that's
had no idea I was sitting next to such a celebrity right here.
200 inches.
So anyway, we I started looking at the film and really got to hear the behind-the-scenes story from Matt, and we really wanted to build a piece up that told the story of Danger. And most of the time, there's 2 ways that I usually get inspired to do a painting. And the first way is a scene. You've all walked through the woods, not as much deer hunting because, we stand hunt a lot, but turkey hunting especially, where you're like, man, that's the prettiest picture. I can just see a strutter coming in right here. Man, this would make a great painting. And those are the moments that I like to capture on film. And most of the time, that scene inspires a painting, and then I'll try to find the wildlife to fill it. The other way to do it is to start with the animal. Maybe it's a unique pose, like a buck making a scrape, or something you've seen, a bugling elk, something you've seen in the wild, and you find a scene for that. With this one, we really started with the scene because we wanted to tell a bigger story. So Mark had moved in on this deer, cut a bunch of trails, bush hogged a bunch of paths, and it's a really cool story how he went in. And the trail, we actually painted the scene from a trail camera photo of Danger, and I believe you told me he was on his death march.
Yeah,
that was the morning
he
he got shot.
He was fixing to die.
Yeah. So there's a scrape there and a licking branch in the foreground, and Danger is walking past it, and you can see it on the DoD TV episode. He's on his death march. He's going to the stand. And so we started with that scene, and after that, I found photos, reference photography for Danger. Now, Danger's unique because he was a brute. He had a big brisket, abnormally large brisket, and neck. So I find a scene, and from there I'll manipulate the deer's anatomy. We'll sway his belly a little bit. I'll move a leg here or there if I don't like his position, and I do all this in Photoshop. we'll put his antlers on.
So sorry.
Yeah.
You're taking a reference photo, so like a trail camera picture of him, and then you're manipulating the actual photograph itself with Photoshop to get a photo that looks like what you want to be working with eventually.
Yes. But in his, what we did is I focused in on the right half of the trail camera photo, and then found a buck of a freelance photographer who had a buck in the pose that I wanted. And then I'll move his legs around. Sometimes deer's legs are lined up and it looks like they have one leg. So I'll move it and make it look like he's a big, weighty animal. He need, with his stability and 4 feet on the ground. The pose was unique because Danger's got so many tines. And so he really looks best from the side. When you have a head-on shot, his tines just kind of merge together, and it doesn't do justice. So we worked really hard to find a pose that would really show off the rack, the body, and kind of tell the bigger story of it. So I combined one main photo of the body, another for the head, and then took his antlers off of a trail camera photo. Photoshopped all that in together. Wow. And I have a Mac next to my easel, and when I photoshopped something, it allows me to make some changes here and there. So I may move a tree line down, move a licking branch, this or that or the other, and it saves me time because I get to make the changes I want without having to redo it on canvas. Right. Once it's painted, it takes a lot of time to rework. And usually when I do a commission piece, I let the buyers approve it. Say, look, here's where I'm going. This is what it's basically going to look like before we go to paint. It saves a lot of back and forth on that. So with Danger, we got him set up the way we wanted to. And I have a Mac next to my easel that I pull up my reference photos on. And a funny thing about Danger is when I went to paint his antlers, I kept having to watch the kill shot back and forth because as he turns, there are tines and points and things that you can't even see. And so to paint it accurately, I really had to watch a video to see all of his tines. The way, because he's a huge deer. And we painted them in a scrape just because it's a cool pose. It's unique. As hunters, we can all relate to that. It really shows off his body size. But the other thing that's cool is part of the story in this was that 3.5-year-old comes in and starts making a scrape and tearing it up, and that's what calls in Danger. And so the idea of, Danger he was the big dog, and the idea of him being territorial, laying down his turf, who's boss. With all of these things go in to tell the story of Danger. And in the bottom right, I even included a few little stumps, cedar stumps, where Mark had gone in and cut the trees off. And so the whole painting, there was the blind in the background and the distant background, the CRP. So the whole painting, it's one of those images that, you see it from a distance and it's cool. It's a cool deer photo, the painting that people can resonate with. But as you get in there, there's a few more details that tell the story, and there's a few unique things. And yeah. And it's
cool.
It's a one in a kind, I'm not going to say once in a lifetime for the Drurys, but it's a once in a one of a kind deer for sure. It's a one of a kind story, and so we thought it deserved a one of a kind painting, and that's what we did.
Now, how about the actual painting of it? So you got your reference photo, and now you got a blank canvas. How do you actually go through that? Is it like, do you outline, and then the next day you come in and you flesh in a little more, the next day you do a little, what's that look like?
Yeah. Well, on a big painting like that, on a small piece, a lot of times I will go straight to paint. I'll just start painting and sketch it out with paint. On a bigger piece like that, I really like to sketch the whole thing on canvas and get it proportionally where I want. Deer, especially a pose like this one of him making a scrape, the anatomy is critical. Okay, so when he leans forward and his neck is up, every muscle ties in. Those back legs are tight. The tendons are taut. Everything ties in. So you want the anatomy spot on to pull off the scene. I like to sketch everything on canvas, get it right, get it proportional, and then from there, I like to do what's called an underpainting. So if you've ever written, I tell people sometimes just, going straight to paint's like typing with a typewriter with no eraser, right. When you have that blank piece of paper in front of you, it's kind of intimidating. If you've ever written an essay in school or, procrastinated and you got to write something, it's like, You write a lot.
Yeah,
You're like,
I know the feeling.
what the heck
Too
am I
often.
going to write about?
Yeah.
You know, that little cursor's blinking, and you're like, God, and it's intimidating.
Yeah.
But if you've got some notes scribbled down, you have a rough outline, you have an idea where you want to go, it starts to flow a little bit easier. And, you know, a 24 by 30 blank canvas can be kind of intimidating. And so to get color on the canvas just kind of loosens me up. It kind of gets me in the flow of things. If I've got a sketch on there, I've gone in the flow of things, and that's typically how I start. So I'll lay that underpainting down.
What does that mean, though, an underpainting?
Well, underpainting is just kind of the painting under the painting, and it's just to get some color on the canvas. It's just to knock off that white. And what I'll do is...
So that's just some random colors.
Yeah, usually earth tones. In a painting like this, it's a warm morning scene, so I use some warmer earth tones so that some of those little pieces are going to show through in the end painting. You want it to come off very warm. And I will essentially do a single color, almost a black and white painting underneath. And at that point, I can see where my darkest darks are, where my lightest lights are. And if I have any issues with the piece, I'll change it from there. You know, your values, we're getting into some dorky art stuff here, right? So your
Our audience is into this.
I'm interested.
I am.
Your values, okay, we'll take a deer sight. We'll tie this into deer hunting. Your values are more important. Your values are your black and your white scale, okay? Your values are the most important part of a recognizable image. So deer see things in black and white. If you look at something in black and white, everything is still recognizable. You can tell what those are. If you take the black and white out of there, the lights and the darks, and it's just blotches of color, it's completely unrecognizable. So that's why we can recognize a black and white photo. The same is true in painting. Your darkest darks and your lightest lights produce your value scale, and you want that to be right. In other words, around Danger's head, I want his blackest blacks, his nose and his eyes and stuff, and his whitest whites around his head, so you focus on his head. As you go out from there, the values tend to blur together. They're more medium tones. So if you squint, the background tends to recede. And that's a little artistic way to focus the viewer's eye in a certain direction.
Makes sense.
This is the first time on a Mark Kenyon podcast that we have talked about
values
values
of black
and
white.
paintbrush. I am sure of it.
Maybe we'll bring this as like a weekly type of topic we're going to cover on the Wired Hunt podcast in the future.
But, you know, it camo works the same way.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a gray and a brown that are the same value, they're almost the same color, and put that in camo, you don't really get a pattern. But contrast is difference in values. That's what breaks your pattern up.
Okay.
So
you got your
it's all tied
underpainting, you got your black and white.
Then after
Now
that, I'll go back in and put color. So I know that if I put a really dark here, I can come in with color and put a dark value of that color on top of it.
So if you mess up, you can fix it.
Totally.
Totally fix it. I mean,
Yeah.
just listening to you, you know, the way you talk about the whitetail and the animal, you're like a master taxidermist, but with a brush.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very well put.
Exactly.
I mean, you
And-
talk about the form, his body, his antlers, his eyes, his nose.
Yep. And on Danger, it might show up on the edited video, but on Danger, I very rarely paint from taxidermy because you guys ever remember that show, that movie Duplicity? What?
I recognize the title, but-
Anyway, he clones himself and he makes a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
And the copy of a copy is a
Michael
little
Keaton?
little off, you know, with
Michael
Michael
Keaton?
Keaton.
It's
Yeah,
hilarious,
You
actually.
never want to make a copy of a copy because every step you get away from the real thing, you're introducing errors
Right.
into it. So I very rarely paint from taxidermy, but my good buddy Dave Emkin, he's unbelievable in Central Illinois, and he's the one that does all my stuff. And I actually took one of my deer heads off and set it on the ground to reference a couple of things, mainly the way that kind of tear duct gland in front of the eye comes down in front. But yeah, it's a lot like taxidermy. Taxidermy is an art, and you know, somebody asked me recently how hunting and art have tied in with me, and personally, I feel like I've become a better hunter as I've stepped up my game artistically, and the same is vice versa for art. The better hunter you are, the better artist you are, because you notice things like how dark a mature deer's tarsal glands are, the angle that their antlers come up away from their head, and you know, the more you're around that stuff, the more you inherently know the anatomy of an animal and how it ties in.
Have you ever been commissioned to do a piece like this where you had video to work off of, to go back and kind of look at the deer in the wild?
Never. I rarely do commissions, actually. This is actually the first commission piece. I've done a bunch of dogs, done a bunch of labs and bird dogs and stuff. But as far as a game animal, this is the first unique deer that I've been commissioned to paint. Mostly it's deer, elk, ducks, stuff like that.
So did the video, I mean, you already mentioned how you were kind of going back to that, the kill shot. And that's just, there's not much pre-roll of that deer. I mean, he popped up and he was there at the blind at 5 steps. He got shot. Yeah. So did you find that being a very resourceful tool? Like, hey, this is a whole nother element to add to my game, to be able to use video to
absolutely
kind of double check against.
The video really helped. Yeah, and even your trail camera videos, seeing the way that deer comes up to a scrape, like I mentioned his brisket before, he was big and kind of saggy up front. Things like that, the video, seeing the deer walk helps. In references for the Outdoor Life covers, I've watched videos of slow motion deer running. You would not believe what you really notice when you observe a deer in real life. The way that when they start to run, all the hair on their rear end and tail flares. It's not just a white tail, all that hair flares up. Their ears never stop moving. Even when they're bedded, they're always going around, and they pivot in certain ways. When they hit that scrape, that tear duct opens up. Things that you don't think about until you watch it in slow motion, and it's fascinating. You've always seen videos on National Geographic of things in super zoomed in slow motion. You're like, you've got to be kidding me. And deer are no different. And there's a lot of things that you pick up on too. Like when they run, their head very rarely moves from parallel to the ground. They don't do this because they can't. So there's just a lot of things. And to your point, video helps it a ton.
Very cool.
A still photo is just one snapshot moment in time, and the video helps you get a lot more holistic view of it. So
pretty neat approach.
Yeah,
it is.
It's fascinating. As I think anyone who creates something can relate to like the detail and the mindfulness you put into it and respect that. Like that's very fascinating to me and very cool to hear about that. I'm curious. Favorite animal, and of that animal, favorite setting or pose or situation that you like to paint. Like if you were going to paint something for yourself, your favorite thing ever, what would that be?
Yeah. It's a little bit cliche because we're already on the subject, but a buck hitting a scrape is one of the coolest. It's and a lot of times women that don't hunt don't know what it is. I've had wives tell me, I want to buy the piece for my husband of the buck eating the tree, or stuff like that. But as guys and women too that hunt and know what it is, it's kind of the ultimate man cave painting. I've painted one before, and it's just like testosterone filled, and that's what we love. And if you've seen it in action, it's kind of
So cool.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah, it is cool.
It's just it's kind of an intimate look into the whitetails world. It's something that you just don't see. It's not a deer on the edge of a cornfield. You're in his turf if he's making a scrape in daylight in front of you. And that's my favorite pose. Personally, I love to turkey hunt, but man, you paint feathers for a full day, and at the end of that day, you're like, and there's really no way to get around painting turkey feathers. You just gotta put those things in. So, favorite animal to paint is definitely a deer. I've really enjoyed painting elk too. That's a lot of fun, and elk provide a lot of cool, unique reference photos. And any animal that has unique anatomy. Bears are kind of tough because they really look like a big ball of fur.
Right. It's hard to see the features in a big black bear. It's all black blob.
But a buck making a scrape, they're athletic, they're trim, they're in their prime, and so that's probably my favorite.
That's pretty awesome.
So I was tipped off by a mutual friend that said you've gotten to do some really cool things that you won't ever talk about because you don't brag about yourself. Like some clientele where you're going on private planes and
Thanks,
going to make
Herb.
deliveries. And, so I want to hear a good story. You don't have to name names, but let's hear.
Oh, I'm going to name drop on the first one. The first one was really cool. This was so you've got to understand. When I started out and I launched on my own, and I still help some clients do print advertising. Winchester Ammo is my biggest client. I still do a lot of that kind of stuff. And for the first 2 years on my own, I was painting and putting stuff on social media, and I don't think I was on Instagram yet, but I hadn't really sold a lot, and I was really working. My work was just as good then as it is now, but it's kind of, the marketing is kind of a flywheel. It just takes a long time to get going. So I hit a streak where I started selling paintings. I've been painting for a couple years, and I hit a streak where I really started selling some. And you get a lot of scams and just kind of weirdos hitting you up, on email. Like, you guys are all celebrities. You know how it is. Like,
not about that, but
no, but
I get weird
but
emails.
People,
I will say that.
You get weird emails.
I do get weird emails.
But and some of them are just kind of sketchy, and you never know. So I get an email from this woman who she was looking for a gift for her husband, and her email was ended MJW at hankjr.com. And I was like, hankjr.com. So of course I look. That is the domain.
I was gonna say that gives it a little legitimacy.
Yeah,
and
you would think.
So my go-to when I get an email I'm not sure about is I just tell them, hey, give me your give me your phone number and I'll give you a call. And if they're a sketchball, then they're not going to talk to you on the phone. So she gives me her email or her phone number, and we talk about it. And it turns out it's Hank Jr.'s wife, and she wants to buy it for him for an anniversary present.
Wow.
I'm like, holy cow!
I
So
made it.
and so I call her back, and she was supposed to send a check and all that kind of stuff, and she hadn't yet. It'd been like a week or two, and we were kind of getting close to the anniversary deadline. So I called her back, and she's like, oh yeah, I've been on the road, and I'm in Florida right now. I'm at the airport. Can I just give you Hank's credit card number? And I was like, yeah, okay.
Obviously, he doesn't check his statement.
So she gives me the credit card number, and I ran it through Square and
I love
processed
the fact that she uses his credit card to pay for his gift.
But I was like, I've got Hank Jr.'s credit card number. Like, we could have some fun tonight, but obviously I didn't do anything with it. But shipped her the painting, and so Hank Jr. has one of my pieces, which is pretty cool. There was a guy that so we live in Boone, North Carolina now, my wife Kim and our son, and we live in the mountains. And there was a guy from he emailed, and he was probably 4 hours away, and he's like, I'm really interested in your artwork. Can you call me and we'll talk it over sometime? And my originals are priced pretty stout, and so usually people just want to buy one. And I'm like, well, which one are you interested in? And he's like, well, I've got about 5 that I'm looking at. And I was like, okay, that's,
listening.
I'll drive
when
right
and where.
now. Where are you?
So I was like, I'd be, and I really do try to meet my buyers and form a relationship with them. And I've gotten to become really good friends with some of them. So I was like, well, we'd be glad to drive it down and meet you. And so he says, well, how about I just send my jet to pick you up? And I was like, we can do that. That's cool too.
Well, I was going to drive my jet over since you said it.
I'll save my gas.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So he flies up, and we did have to drive about 45 minutes to the closest airport. Yeah, because Boone's a little iffy on the jet landing. It's in the mountains. So we drove down there and loaded up several pieces, and my wife took off work, and she flew with me, and we fly down there. And the guy was awesome. The pilot was the man. He flew Dean Williams from North Carolina. Like, he flew Coach K. He flew all those guys to go see recruits on a Tuesday night in West Virginia. They go see. And so he had some really cool stories, and we got to fly in his plane and everything. And we get there, and this was when I knew we were on a whole new different level. So we get there, and we're 20 minutes from the buyer's house, and the he wants us to then get on his helicopter and fly the remaining distance to the house and land at the pad out there.
That is another level.
And he was sending a van to get the paintings. And I was like, dude, I can ride in the van. I mean, it's okay. So he had a van take the art down the road, and we flew in a helicopter and landed there. But he was the nicest guy ever. You know, some of these guys are just self-made, and they're really down-to-earth, hard-working guys. Yeah. He owned a string of car dealerships. He had an interior decorator that decorated his man room for the most part, and he bought a few pieces, and we met with him and stayed in touch with him ever since, and we're probably going to do some deer hunting or turkey hunting down the road. But,
nice.
That was one of the coolest. You know,
when you get a taste of that live, like something that we won't ever, none of us will ever accomplish that level, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just won't. But when you get a little taste of it, to see how they live that other half, it's like, holy cow, man, this is legit awesome.
We were doing it before him and his family went to Africa on a safari, and you know, the pilot and the interior decorator work for him full time. You know, so he just, you know.
Different world.
Yeah, it really is.
And, wonder if he needs a full-time general manager of a production company.
Connect Matt, would you?
Maybe personal
Security guard. There you go.
I got nothing.
Just go check his camera.
Maybe he wants a podcast.
I can do a podcast. We can talk.
But no, there's you know, what I sell as a product is not it's a luxury item. Yeah. The originals really are, and yeah, there's a different, you know, status when you go to decorate your home and you have a budget of $20,000 to fill the walls. Like, that's a different level of wealth, and you know, most of the people that I've talked to and met, they're awesome. They're unbelievably generous, good people. So, and a lot of passionate hunters. You know, they really are. You've really got to love deer to pay $5,000 or $6,000 or $10,000 to put one on your wall.
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome, man.
Not that we don't pay thousands of dollars to put taxidermy on our wall.
There you go. You're right. You're
It's a
right.
little different.
But yeah, no, I've been fortunate.
Well, very interesting stuff. I can't wait to see this in person. I hear I'm going to be able to take a look at it maybe.
Yeah, maybe a sneak peek.
I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to see the video, too, that shows all this, which I hear is going to be pretty good, and that's going to be on DOD TV, right?
Yeah, that'll be on DOD TV. So the time this podcast airs, which we'll probably try to make it, we're filming this here, it's July 11th when we're filming this today, so we'll probably try to make this one of our newer podcasts that we put out. But tonight, July 11th, tonight on YouTube, there's going to be a cutting room floor version of the episode of 13. So you're going to get to see a lot more footage of Superstar, of Danger, of these deer that deserve more time than 20 minutes of content on Outdoor Channel. We're going to do that on our YouTube channel, on DOD TV, Drury Outdoors channel, and then also this specific piece, an original piece about the conception, the process of how Ryan went through and actually painted Danger. So it should be pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff.
Very cool.
Mark's going to be blown away by the surprise tonight.
I hope so, man.
We're doing that on Facebook Live. So you'll be able to, by the time this podcast airs, you'll probably be able to go back on our Facebook page on Drury Outdoors and go back and rewatch that live and see his reaction to us unveiling it and all that
That's
stuff.
very cool. Ryan, if people want to check out your artwork for themselves, or if they want to buy something, where can they go to find all that stuff?
RyanKirbyArt.com is my website. I've got originals, prints, and even some new apparel there. But to follow me day to day, probably Instagram is the best way to go. I love Instagram. It's a visual platform. I love it. At Ryan Kirby Art. Same for Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram is my jam.
The Instagram is the funnest place to follow along with him. Like, he does a lot of his daily sketches he'll put up there.
That is cool
His
stuff.
time lapses, those are always my favorites. The time lapses of you doing the whole process. That's which I'm assuming you'll maybe put the Danger one up.
I'll be kicking some of my own stuff out as well. People really enjoy the process of the studio. People just love seeing things behind the scenes.
But at the end of the day, most people cannot do it. So it's fascinating.
Right.
It's like, I always think about the people that are fascinated with what Mark and Dad do. It's because they don't usually have the time to be able, or the resources to do to that degree or level, and they're fascinated what Mark has to say and what Dad has to say. Well, it's just a different level, right? It's just something. It's still about hunting. It's still about wildlife, and it's something that most people can't do. So it's fascinating to get to see it kind of because you really have never seen from conception to finished product how the process plays out until I feel like you're like the only one doing this on that level on Instagram or on social media. That's why I said you're kind of a new age artist, in my opinion.
There's a guy I'm not typically like, I don't seek out artwork or watch that kind of stuff or something, but this guy named Sam Larson, you familiar with
I
him?
follow him, man. He does
Sam
cool
Larson's
stuff.
awesome,
Yeah.
and he does like Instagram lives where he just goes on there and people just say, draw a tree, draw a buffalo, draw whatever, and he just sits there and he sketches out
Like
everything as
Bob
you say.
Ross style.
Well, I don't know. That's old school. But people say stuff and he draws it, and I just sat there for like, I don't know. I wasted probably, I don't know if it's a waste, but 30 minutes of my day just sitting there watching him draw a horse, draw a pencil, draw. I was like fascinated with it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see someone with that kind of talent
take
something that I can see and put it on a piece of paper when I can't do that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, he's
So-
got and it's a lot of little small stuff that he does and sells. He's cool. He's got some
Very
good
cool
stuff.
stuff.
Never
Yeah,
met the
we've-
guy though.
Seems like some great stuff. I actually my wife bought some stuff for when we renovated our camper.
Yeah,
It's kind of cool.
That's cool.
that's
So-
how the other half lives. Some people pay $10,000 to put it above in their bathroom, and I'm like this guy. Yeah, I bought
I put it in
a
my
little one to
20-foot
put in my camper. That's how I am.
Literally, it's like this big.
I love that.
So you know,
Yep.
I'm definitely not flying you in the
number,
jet.
No,
it's number 500, 499 and 500.
So goes.
That's-
Well,
Very cool.
this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
appreciate
Ryan.
you guys having me on.
Yeah,
It's been a lot
thanks
of-
for
it's been
coming
cool.
in.
Absolutely, and thank you, Coon, for joining us again.
Oh,
and tagging
loved
along.
it. Loved it. Interesting. Very interesting.
Do you think you could do this?
Do what? Paint?
Yeah.
Shoot. Heck no. I can write a ticket. I got that down to a pant.
That's a fine art.
That's
too.
a fine art, too.
Got to sign your
Yeah,
name.
we
Sign
both
your
got to
name.
sign your
That's
name.
right.
That's right.
Oh man,
That's right.
Good
well,
deal.
good stuff.
Yep.
I guess we'll just end with our usual quick reminder. If you would like to submit a question, we didn't really answer a question this week, but in our usual episodes, we answer a listener submitted question, and we will do that in the future again. So if you'd like to submit a question, go to wiredtohunt.com/100. That's 100% wild, and subscribe to the audio version on your iPhone or your Android phone or anywhere like that through the Apple Podcast app, the Google Play app, the Stitcher app, or you can listen at wiredtohunt.com.
As always, you could follow along with the video version of this podcast on the Drury Outdoors YouTube channel, and we have all kinds of original episodes. I've been pimping it here all episode. We're going to have this version of Danger, kind of the behind-the-scenes unveiling of how Ryan went through the whole process. That's a DoD TV original episode. Of course, 13's the cutting room floors over there as well. You'll get to see all that extra footage of Superstar, of Danger, all kinds of cool stuff. So check it out, and as always, you can follow us on all of our social media channels at Drury Outdoors.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.